All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Dungeon Crawlers, where we have author Dacia Arnold to talk about her new amazing novel, Apparent Power, which is being released by Immortal Works and is part of the Diazam trilogy. I hope I said that correctly, because it's a little interesting word, and I know I asked before we started talking, but then I had the question, did I say that right?
No, you did say it right. It is Diazam.
Awesome. So, we're here to talk about the book. It is now in pre-order status. It will release on December 11th. For those listening, that's next week. That means you could pre-order it now, or you can wait till the day of. Either way, I say get this book. It sounds really cool from everything I've read, but I'm going to let Dacia kind of give you a little insight as to what this book is all about, without giving away too many spoilers.
Oh, it's so difficult. So great. Imagine if you went to work today, Daniel, and then the ish hit the fan and you had to get back home without the use of a vehicle, and how long that would take you. I don't know what your commute looks like. Sometimes mine looks like an hour and a half commute, but without a car, it could take days.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of have a unique and lucky circumstance. I work from home, so I literally have to walk outside my office door, and I'm there. So that's not a big problem for me. But yeah, for some people, I mean, I used to have a job that I was in the car for at least an hour or two, and if I had to walk that, it could almost be a day's travel, if not more.
Absolutely. So in my novel, the main character is a working mom versus the popular dystopian trope of a teenage girl.
Okay.
So the mom goes to work and leaves her kid at home with the nanny because her husband also works. This is a typical American household. So she takes, and she's an emergency nurse, takes a shift an hour and a half away, and she's stranded an hour and a half away with her son, is with the nanny. So she does what any other mother would do, and she makes that trip home to her child. Of course, it's a science fiction book, so there is a little bit of hiccups along the way. A dormant gene awakens in a quarter of the population, which disrupts the electricity, which is the reason why cars don't work, planes don't work, your cell phone doesn't work. She has no way of contacting her husband or the nanny, who's hopefully still at home with her child.
Wow. So this dormant gene kind of gives you superpowers in a way?
Or the opposite.
Oh, so the opposite.
So like the human body, we use electricity to metabolize our food into energy. Our heart runs off sparks of electricity to beat. Our nerve endings, our brain are constantly firing just these little minute amounts of electricity. So then these people with this dormant gene begin to absorb the electricity around them. So it's kind of a superpower, but not unless all the checks and balances are in place. Otherwise, you are in a home without electricity. With the main character, her name is Valerie Russell. She has an even rarer gene, which allows her to pull the electricity out of these people and back into appliances, cars, wherever that it's hindered.
Wow. So, I mean, you bring up a good point there. Our bodies do generate heat and electricity, and we need that to survive. We don't think about it. I know the movie The Matrix kind of went into this a little bit. That the robots realize we're batteries. In a way, we kind of are, and then to have this gene where we're affecting the electrical impulses around us is just fascinating.
Well, thank you. It really, so if you think like of the myth or the history, however you view the lost city of Atlantis, they were a group of people who were technologically advanced without any explanation. So in the universe that I've created, once that gene went dormant in that society, the city sank. And so now after however many years it's been, it's now awakened again. And you place that into today's society, and it could cause a lot of hiccups.
Yeah. No, and I love Atlantis. And to be able to pull that into your and make that part of your story, wow, even better. And I like how you're saying the gene went dormant, and that's kind of one of the catalysts that sunk Atlantis, which is fascinating in itself. Which now, those reading what's going on now, for me, it's like, oh, I want to know the backstory and the Atlantis stuff and how that connects to current day. So that's really great storytelling right there.
Thank you. I'm really excited about it. It was, the big driver was I would read books. I work in an emergency room. I would work 12-hour shifts through the night. I would get bored. I read a lot of books. So I would go to my sister. I'm like, hey, what's the next big book? And she would name, this young adult novel, this young adult novel, this young adult series. And then at the end of it, I was like, well, where's the next big one, but for adults? Like, because, I want to shop in the big kid section, and there was nothing. I couldn't find anything. So I decided on one of my 12-hour shifts overnight to write my own book that I wanted to read. That was a heroine that I could relate to.
Nice. Yeah, I think a lot of authors are that way. I know I was. I've read voraciously. I have so many books that my kids and my wife say, why do we need to keep all those? Because I'm going to read them again another day, But we finally get to a point where it's like, I want my own story. I have all these ideas of these stories, but no one has written it yet. And the reason is no one will until you do it.
Absolutely.
And so, and this is just, this definitely is something I've never thought of. And it's just fascinating in itself. And like you, I've read a lot of the young adult stuff, and it is great, but I want an adult book. I always enjoyed adult novels growing up, the adult hero stuff like that, and there's nothing wrong with YA, but there just seems to be something that's a little bit more fulfilling, at least in my perspective, of a more adult novel than a YA novel.
I think the big appeal to the popular young adult novels today is the high action. It is the high stakes, the high action, the oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? But like you said, there's something more fulfilling about, okay, this is a mom and she pays a mortgage, but she also has to save the world.
Yeah.
Like, it hits a little closer to home. Like, where would I, like, I'm running a campaign right now, it's a countdown on Facebook to the days till the awakening, which is the awakening of this dormant gene. Where would you be? I would be at the grocery store with my mom picking up prescription medications, or I would be driving to work, and so on and so forth. I'd be flying in an airplane, which is not where you want to be during the awakening.
Yeah. Avoid all flight travel that day. Yeah,
it's a terrifying scene for sure.
Oh, well, I'm just sitting here thinking of that idea. What would happen if you were on, let's say, Hawaii, for instance, when this happened? How do you get back home? Because even like a diesel engine produces an electrical charge, and that's why we have that gas catalyst, and you're going to be sucking that out. So how do you get off this island and back home? At least this mother can walk home. It's a long trek, but when you're stuck on Hawaii, how do you get back home to your kids that are in California or Utah or Colorado, for instance? That sounds mind-boggling.
But you would do whatever you had to do as a parent. Like, that's you would hop in a dinghy and swim and paddle the ocean to get home. That's just what you would do, and that's what moms and parents. That's what we do.
Yeah.
We take that desperation and we figure out a way. And I think that's one of the main reasons why I wanted the main character to be a parent, because you are responsible for far more than just yourself and your own circumstances. You can go on and save the world, but what are you going to do? You've got a 2-year-old attached to your leg.
Yeah.
You're not going to be like, stay here with this stranger, honey, while I go beat the bad guy.
Yeah. Well, and beyond that, I think all of us, especially many of us adults can relate to that because we do have a child. We know what that's like. I mean, I know several people that just going on a vacation trip, there is a level of underlying stress there because the kids are home. And it's fun to go, but you hit a certain point in the vacation where you start worrying about the kids or wondering if they're okay, or you start missing them and then want to get back.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my goals for this year is to take a kid-free vacation because I never have. Since I've had children, I have never gone on a vacation without them. So this is the year my husband and I have decided we're going to do it.
I highly suggest doing it. This is the first time. So this year was the first time we ever did, and we actually ended up going 3 different times. One was a very mini one. It was just a weekend trip, but we did 2 other ones. It was fantastic. It was the greatest time ever. There was I never once heard, "Are we there yet?" or anything like that, or "I'm starving." It was so glorious.
Got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Stop everything you're doing.
Yeah. It was so amazing, but at the same time, you get to a point where it's like, I want to go home. I miss my kids. Which is weird. I mean, because I was celebrating my freedom and everything, and then I got to a point where there's this one mom walking with this little boy, and I'm like, oh, I miss my son, and it's like, okay, I think I'm ready to go home. Type thing.
I think that's one of the ways, as a mother and a working mother, I know there's a lot of stigma still in society about women working, but it gives me an opportunity to miss my kids daily. So by the end of my third 12-hour shift, I'm like, okay, let's just stay in bed and snuggle all day.
I honestly feel like there is some value there. Again, there are differing opinions. But, there's several songs out there, and there's sayings, but it really is a real thing. When you step away, it actually gives you the opportunity to miss that person, and I feel like that makes a better bond, because you do miss each other, and oh man, the word is escaping me that I was just thinking a second ago.
It just sounds like a reason to take a solo vacation.
Yeah, I mean, you value your time with those individuals more, and you don't take it for granted, I guess is what I'm trying to get at, when you have that separation, because then that time together is more important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But again, it is fun to go on a solo vacation, and I highly suggest it. It is great. Because we have done the vacations with kids, and it doesn't feel like a vacation. It feels like work, and you're not. You feel just as exhausted when you get home than when you left. But when you have that solo one, man, it's relaxing.
I recently took a trip by myself with my 2 children, and ended up getting frisked by TSA. And I'm not going to tell you what airport it was, but in front of everybody.
Oh, yeah.
And my 2 small children are just hanging out, and they're going through my bags, and I'm like, I have nothing to hide. Honestly, There are far worse things that could happen in life than me getting frisked by TSA. And all the while, I'm telling my son, who's like, Mom, why is that, police to him? Why is that police, treating you like this? And I'm like, oh, they're keeping us safe. They're doing so. But it still adds a bit of stress.
Oh, yeah.
Traveling with kids. Otherwise, I wouldn't have blinked an eye at TSA patting me down.
No, my last trip, I had that happen to me, and I'm like, what the heck? I don't have any metal on me. I don't have anything on me. I'm not carrying anything. It ended up being I had a goldfish wrapper, a little package of goldfish that I put in my back pocket, and those are metallically lined, and that's what was setting it off. And it delayed me, and I'm like, really? So I'm not eating goldfish again before getting on a plane. So, now, one really cool thing that you do have for Parent Power, for our listeners that they want to pick up the book next week, they can kind of get a taste of the writing and everything. You put out a novella for the book.
Oh, yes, I did. So a few months ago, my publisher and I, Immortal Works, were discussing an incentive for people to pre-order a Parent Power 6 months out. And it was suggested, hey, how about we offer a free audiobook? And I was excited about that. And then I was like, well, wait, what if I wrote the audiobook? And in about 2 months, the novella Reactance came to life. So Reactance, like I said, is a companion novella. It's not so much like a prequel. It's more of a side story. There are a few crossover characters, which I will not give away because you won't figure it out until the end of book 2.
Okay.
But the timeline runs the same timeline as Apparent Power up until the middle of the middle and end of the second book, Shifting Power. So you can read Reactance before Apparent Power, perfectly acceptable, or you can read Apparent Power and then read Reactance while you're waiting for Shifting Power to hit stores.
Even better. So there you go. Yeah. So you did kind of mentioned what was the catalyst to get you to write, which was, sitting there reading and you wanted to write something else. But have you always wanted to be a writer? Because it sounds like you're a nurse, something you enjoy. Was there ever a point earlier in your life where you wanted to be a writer but went the route of a nurse, or is this just something new that came up?
So I'm not a nurse.
Okay.
I do work in an emergency room at the front desk, the first line of triage. But my background is actually I served 10 years in the United States Army as a medic.
Okay.
And as a medic, so it's the civilian equivalent of an EMT. However, in a hospital setting, we are able to perform tasks like a nurse, except for giving IV medication. So under the supervision of a physician, of course. So I did that for about 10 years. I worked in Baghdad emergency room, which is infamous with the HBO documentary. And throughout my career, I stayed with the combat support hospital and ended at a warrior transition battalion where I helped wounded, ill, and injured soldiers transition from the military or back into the military after recovering from their injury or illness. So that's my background in medicine. I got out of the military in 2014, and I just integrated into civilian medicine. But what really drove me to write a book, period, was that my dad, who was also, my dad's my hero. I'll just say that. He's a shining example of adulting and doing it right. My dad retired as sergeant major in the Army and influenced me to go. He didn't indirectly. I'm sure he didn't want his daughter going off to war. But I followed in his boot prints, joined the military, and then when he retired, he published a book, The Reclamation. And seeing his success, like writing this book and getting it published and, being able to buy it on Amazon, I got excited and I was like, I could do this too. I could do this too and make my dad proud because he's my hero.
Nice. No, that's a great story. And, wow. I mean, that's really cool to be able to follow in your dad's footsteps and then to be, to go into the military and then to do it again, writing a book. Because writing a book is not easy. It's, a lot of people I have talked to are just like, oh, it's no big deal. You're just putting words on a page and throwing it together. That's easy. But it really isn't. I mean, it's an emotional roller coaster. Besides putting words to a page, it has to make sense. It has to be cohesive. And then you're fighting the inner demon of, is this good? Am I crap? Does this even make sense? Till you can finally get it finished and then send it off, and then hopefully an editor or a publisher likes it, that they'll publish it, and then a reader will like it, and so on and so forth. So there's so many emotional battles that you're fighting just to put out a book.
Absolutely. And I think, I put every aspect of my life into this book because, of course, it's my first novel. Yeah. I wasn't a writer before. I never even attempted to write anything before. Maybe I played around in school with spelling words and making short stories, integrating those words, I think was the most writing I had done. but being new and having read, I think, was an important key of being able to tell a good story.
Yeah.
Was having read and then knowing specifically who I was writing for, basically myself, but anyone that would fit into that sort of demographic, was also helpful in developing the storyline and the themes throughout the story.
No, I agree. When writing, you definitely have to write for yourself, and then hopefully it's in the same genre or setting that fans will love. So we have book one. We kind of have the little companion novella, and you've already mentioned the second book. How many books are you planning in this series? Is it going to be a trilogy, maybe 5? What are you looking at or thinking?
Oh, this is a trilogy.
Okay.
This is a trilogy. The third book, you will see the ending. And that's all I can really say right now without giving anything away.
No, I don't want you to give anything away. As long as, we know it's 3 books, that's fantastic. Because 3 books is not that long of a wait. 5, 10, 20, Robert Jordan length series. You're waiting a while for that epic conclusion. Plus, it's nice to have 3 books, and then you can move on to something new and different as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I started writing Apparent Power 2 years before I signed on with Immortal Works for publishing. And then once I signed, I think while I was talking with them, I began the second book, which is now complete and in the revision stage. So that should hopefully be out sometime next year. And then the third book to follow will probably be another year out.
Nice. That's not too bad. So, now that you're moving the cogs and moving forward with this storyline, what is something you would like to write after this series is all wrapped up? Is there a particular genre, or do you have some other ideas that are kind of bubbling on the surface?
I think my passion behind writing has a lot to do with the empowerment of women and mothers within like romantic relationships. When I was away on my second deployment, I ran an outpatient clinic in southern Iraq. On Christmas morning, I found out that my best friend was murdered by her boyfriend, and I was unable to be there for her. I didn't know that she was going through this type of abuse. So I think now, in order for myself to cope without that closure of that relationship, is to make sure that every woman knows that they don't deserve to be treated like that, and that there are ways out. So I think I will continue to write adult women main characters that might not always realize their true potential.
No,
immediately.
I do like that. That is something that I continue to look for as far as with books and things like that for my daughters to read. Something that empowers them and shows them that they can stand up for themselves. That's one thing I do appreciate about the new Star Wars movies with the character of Rey. She's definitely... there's that one scene where Finn grabs her hand in Jakku and starts running away from the TIE fighters coming in. She's like, "Don't do that," and like swats his hand away. And I love that because it's like I don't need to be the damsel in distress. I can protect and take care of myself.
Absolutely.
So those are fantastic characters to see in media. So kudos to you for writing those type of characters, because I feel like women and daughters everywhere need that, to see that. I know a lot of the writings in the 50s and that definitely had that damsel in distress. You didn't really see a lot of strong female lead characters, and I think we need more of those.
Absolutely.
So, all right. We're running out of time. which is fine because we've talked about a lot of great, fantastic stuff, and I hope people run out and pick up this novel because it's well worth your time, and it's a great book to read. Where can the listeners find you, whether it's on social media? Is there any signings or events you're going to be doing? Where can they find you?
I am readily available on Facebook, author Dacia M. Arnold. I am also available on Twitter at Dacia Author. I have a website, daciamarnold.com. I will be at CoSign, which is Colorado Springs Science Fiction Convention in January. I will be at FanX in April in Salt Lake City, Utah. I will also be at Denver Pop Culture Con at the end of May.
All right. Well, I will definitely see you at FanX. That's exciting, and the best thing you can do for any author is read their books, tell your friends about it, leave a review. Even negative ones are good, but if you're going to leave a negative one, be constructive instead of just being a jerk. But definitely support your local authors and authors all around by leaving reviews. That really helps.
Absolutely.
So, with that said, we're going to take off. Remember, Apparent Power releases on December 11th, so next week, get your copy or go to Amazon and pre-order now. And we'll catch you next time.